Hello, my name is Rhys, and I've been exploring the concept of community in relation to Australian Indigenous culture. I've learnt many things through this investigation and have been quite taken aback by some of the artwork I've found illustrating this concept from the subjective view of Indigenous artists. The concept of community can be defined as a group of people living in the same place or having a characteristic in common. In terms of Indigenous culture, there is a very strong community in what has unfortunately become more of an us against them mentality. Australian Indigenous people are the subject of a lot of deficit thinking and are often unfairly portrayed in a negative light due to these unjustified negative stereotypes. One example of this occurrence can be found in the way that Aboriginal people are portrayed to be the lowest group on what has become the socio-economic ladder as such. Many European Australians, especially those further up the socio-economic food chain, blindly believe that this is the case without any first-hand evidence or understanding. What these people do not see is the rich culture that has inspired many great things throughout the country and for the most part live happy and simply within their respective communities and broader community bases. It is understood that a large portion of white Australia is not accepting of Indigenous culture, and this has had a substantial negative effect on the proud Indigenous people. They can often feel unwanted in white society and are conflicted when presented with what is basically an ultimatum of act like us or don't associate with us. That is detrimental to the proud way of life that is Indigenous culture, and it all stems from negative stereotypes. Not fitting into the majority of people and the so-called community that has been created by white Australians has a detrimental effect on the culture of Indigenous people. A sense of community comes in many shapes and forms, and Indigenous people have been largely looked down upon for their reluctance to embrace the new Australian way of life. This form of community and a desire to fit in is expressed through the work of Udjuru Nunakul in the poem Integration Yes. Gratefully, we learn from you, the advanced race. You, with long centuries of law behind you. We, who were Australians long before. You, who came yesterday. Much that we loved is gone and had to go, but not the deep Indigenous things. The past is still so much a part of us, still about us, still within us. We are happiest amongst our own people. No, not assimilation, but integration. Not submergence, but our uplifting. So black and white may go forward together in harmony and brotherhood. Nunakul makes a strong stance and argues that her people are happy and content with their way of life, and that white Australia doesn't like it because they do not understand it. In deconstructing this poem, it has become apparent that Australian society is not quite as evolved as we would like to think. And we still battle with signs of segregation and racism today. The question that Nunakul poses is, why should they look down on us and our strong community when they do not have a strong community themselves? Nunakul strongly illustrates her desire for both cultures to integrate in harmony and put aside their differences to form community of all people. As European Australians, we have been led to believe that we are superior to Indigenous people from decades, even centuries of stereotyping Indigenous people that has resulted in deficit thinking and the be like us mentality. However, it has not quite occurred to many people that Indigenous people do not want to be like us and have their own purpose of life that is expressed through their own communities. Nunakul confirms that Indigenous people do not want to be like us. They want equality and the freedom to live the way that they want within their own communities. That is expressed that includes traditions and important events. They want to form a strong community with us, not against us. Yet we don't see that. She agrees that they have adapted, even grown as a community due to the hardship that this has caused for generations. However, is still willing and wanting to form integration, not assimilation. She wants traditions to still be recognised, not disregarded, as Indigenous people disappear into white society. After analysing the concept of community, in both Indigenous and non-Indigenous cultures in Australia, it has become apparent through the work of Nunukul that a strong integrated community is what is sought. However, this is not apparent to everybody, as white Australians continue to disrespect Indigenous culture through generations of hidden stereotypes and deficit thinking. White Australians still are expecting Indigenous people to assimilate into their society and culture, while strong Indigenous voices such as Nunukul's have expressed their desire to fit into this culture without losing their own sense of community, as that is a large part of their special and unique culture. Integration, not assimilation.